Hello, I'm Chris Ossman, and this is Solutions. Enough complaining, let's fix America. What I'd like to talk about today is it's kind of related to climate change. It actually is related to climate change, but it's more of a look at things that maybe other people can get behind and trying to stop denying the change in their climate, because you can look at the short term things that are going on with our environment in general. And you can look at the people who are denying climate change and who are supporting pseudoscience that denies climate change or obfuscates the true numbers of and true impacts of climate change. It's right now people are saying, oh, climate is cyclical. And that's true. But what they're ignoring is that we are way out of the range of the normal cycle. So if you have a cycle that, let's say, it just goes from -10 to +10, it just cycles up and down like that. And that's how it's done it historically. Well, right now we're under what's called a hockey stick. And instead of being +10, we're at +100 as far as the impacts that humanity is having on the climate cycle. So we're way out of range with that kind of stuff. But that relates to what I would like to talk about. And it is that we seem to, we're in a system. We're in a closed system. Earth is a closed system. There's only so much water on the planet that we can access. And there's only so much fresh water on the planet that we can access. And the more fresh water that we pollute, the less water that there is. And the more scarce that this water becomes, because we cannot recycle and clean this water. The same thing with all these trees that they're cutting down in the Amazon. Now, the Amazon is called the lungs of the planet because it takes a lot of the poison gases that we breathe out, and it turns it into oxygen. It turns it into something that we can breathe. Now, if you chop down the trees, and they try to say they have these programs to replace these trees, but sometimes these trees take 100 years to grow. So there's no way that we're replacing a tree. We should have started 100 years ago planting trees to be able to chop down the trees that we're chopping down right now, and causing more and more detrimental impacts to our environment. And this gets to the point of what I really want to get to. Earth is a closed system. It's we only have this habitat that we can live in, and because it's a system, there are balances that it can tolerate and imbalances that it cannot tolerate. And I feel like Earth is getting to the point where it can no longer tolerate the impacts of humanity. And while I'm not a religious person, I do feel like the Earth is fighting back. Others might look at it like this is God, passing judgment on us. But I don't look at it like that, even though that I'm not saying it's not that. I'm just saying that I'm looking at things that are impacting us as a species, humanity as a species, that seem very specific and seem like this is Earth trying to put itself back in balance. And mankind has been putting Earth out of balance for decades now, or more than decades, because Shell and these other gas companies knew that the climate was going to be impacted by their activities and by mankind's activities. So we've known about this for a long time, but instead of people acting in a humane and moral manner, they acted so that they can make more profits. They just ignored the science and just chose instead to pollute the planet, to kill the environment, to do a lot of negative things to Earth. And now Earth is basically trying to put itself back in balance. And the reason I believe this is because some of the things that are happening to us seem to be very specific to trying to wean out or trying to cull humanity. Things like COVID-19. And then now the swine flu, which has been around for 5 years now, it's starting to, I guess, a different strain is coming out, or it's starting to happen, be more of a threat to humanity. But then you also get into more specific things. It's like there's one thing I thought was very weird. It's called the alpha gal. And alpha gal is either a syndrome or it's a disease that's caused by the bite of a tick called the Lone Star tick. Now, the Lone Star tick used to only be in Texas. That's where it gets its name, I imagine, from. So it was in Texas only. And now, a few years ago, it was around 40% of the states in the United States. It had spread out that far. And if this tick bites you, you get alpha gal. And alpha gal, amongst other symptoms, it also has the symptom of causing a red meat allergy. Now, it's only red meat. It's not chicken or other types of meat that, or poultry. It's not other types of protein that this causes a problem with. It's just red meat. Now, that seems very specific, but if you think about it, look at how we raise cattle. We raise cattle where they're standing side by side in their own feces for their entire lives, and it's so bad that we have to inject them with antibiotics because there's so many diseases if you stand around in your own feces. So that's how we raise cattle. There's things called CAFO, CAFO, or FU, or FA. I'm not sure. They're called CAFO. Anyway, look them up. It's just basically where there's thousands of head of cattle that are put in pens side by side, and they treat these animals very inhumanely. But people don't realize where their food comes from these days because everything is in a package. It's microwave. It takes a minute to cook everything nowadays. They need to wake up, and they need to realize how inhumanely we are treating other species on this planet. The fact that we've caused the sixth mass extinction on the planet is a problem. There was a point where the bees were disappearing, and bees are pollinators. They pollinate like a third of the plants that we grow on that grow on Earth. So if those die off, then we're going to have a serious problem with the food supply chain. And that's, another issue that, humanity needs to face is our food supply chain is based on profit. Now, as I've said in the past, we should not have a food supply chain that is profit driven, because when it's something that could help more people survive, and, right now, we have 40 million people who face food insecurities on a daily basis. It's probably more now with all the economic collapse and all the joblessness, the joblessness. But when we have a system that is only looking at being profitable, and not really being concerned with the welfare of the citizens, of the public, of the majority of the people, then you end up with scarcity, and that's capitalism. I will continue to harp on how bad capitalism is, because right now capitalism is showing us that you either have a choice of going to work and catching COVID-19 and possibly giving it to one of your family members and killing them. You might survive, but maybe your family members won't. Or you stand the possibility of staying home and starving. So that's capitalism. It gives you two bad choices. It gives you two life and death choices that we should not have to make. In the richest country the planet has ever seen, in America, how is it that we have so many people who are starving, who are homeless, who are poor, who are broke, who can't afford heating, who can't afford electricity or water? That's ridiculous. Capitalism is a systemic failure, and we need to start transitioning to something other than capitalism. In my book, I wrote about this. I talk about the open source economy. I talk about resource-based economy. There are alternatives that we can transition to, and there are different things that we can do to make the planet more sustainable, because as we continue to cause this imbalance in Earth will continue to fight back. I think the COVID-19, the ticks, the swine flu, and all the plastics being washed up on the shores, because even that is becoming an issue, because the countries that used to take our garbage, they're shipping our garbage back to us because they no longer have the space or the capacity to take our garbage. So they're sending it back to America. And when you have the war, the economic fights with China, they're not going to take our garbage anymore, because that's part of the fight. So we in America, we need to start setting good examples. America hasn't set good examples for years now. We've set a bunch of bad examples. I mean, look, COVID-19, we saw it coming across the globe, and America just reacted really late, and now we're number one in COVID infections and deaths. So, we need to change that. We need to stop being the example of what not to do. You know, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, like I said, Earth is a system. It's out of balance. It will continue to do things to set itself to correct the imbalance that humanity is causing. So we need to start trying to change our ways. We need to fix these things, and we need to have leadership that doesn't act the way that our current leadership acts. You have Trump, who should never have been president. You have Democrats who say they fight Trump, but they give him his budget for his military. They've increased it. They gave him more for his military than he even asked for. Almost everything that they say they're, all their resistance seems to be symbolic only. Nancy Pelosi's tearing up his State of the Union speech is nothing. Nancy Pelosi kneeling with a kente cloth is nothing. It's when they give us $1,200, a one-time payment of $1,200 in May, and then they forget that the bills continue to pour in. Meanwhile, the rich keep getting richer, the rich keep getting richer, the rich keep getting richer. Drive that into your head, because eventually it will have an impact on you. Because unless you're some of the super rich, they're the ones that are going to keep accumulating the money. It's not just going to stop at the poor, because now it's having a great impact on the middle class. Next, it's going to be the upper middle class, and it's going to continue and continue and continue, because right now we live in a dog-eat-dog world of capitalism, and capitalism's main goal is scarcity. It's not a bug of the system that you have deregulated capitalism, because deregulated capitalism comes from the fact that after a while, these people can no longer innovate. They can no longer innovate, so they have to start doing immoral and corrupt means to continue to make their pile of cash grow and grow and grow and grow. So, America, wake up! We need to stop these people. They're not gonna stop themselves. They've shown that they can't stop themselves. Because think about it: if you have $1 billion, you have more money than you could ever spend, more money than your family could ever spend, more money than generations of your family could ever spend. But for some reason, they need to accumulate more and more and more. Now, if everybody had a house, had clothing, had food, had water, then that would be one thing. That would be fine that there's billionaires. But until every man, woman, and child have everything they need to survive, there should be no millionaires. Period. And if you think about the millionaires that are out there, they know that the money that they have, the excess money that they have, is causing harm to a lot of people. So when Bill Gates talks about his charities and all this other stuff, his money is still causing a lot of harm to other people. And then there's sneaky things that Bill Gates does with these charities. He's trying to get new markets by giving charities to these countries and stuff. It's not so open and shut as him just giving money away to these people. There's a reason why he's doing this. And it's going to be the same with everybody. It's like Jeff Bezos putting out there, asking people, what should he do as a philanthropy? Maybe at the time, because at the time he wasn't paying them $15 an hour. But maybe instead of considering giving to charities, he could have just paid his people more. And then gave to charities if he wanted to do that on top. So we need to get away from all this stuff, America. We have a big imbalance in the planet, and the planet will start to try to recover and try to put itself back in balance. I've been telling people for decades now, Earth will be around long after humanity dies off. Now it's just a matter of how soon or how long it takes for us to kill ourselves, because basically that's what we're doing. Humanity will be the last species on Earth if we keep getting our ways. We do not have dominion, as a lot of people will believe. We don't have dominion over everything. And we will soon find out how untrue that sentiment is, as more and more attacks from planet Earth occur against mankind. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks for joining me. I hope you join me again for another Solutions. Enough complaining. Let's fix America.